Metro. Thank you to the entire Metro New York chapter for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to these types of discussions. So, as introduced, my name is Brandy Tedesco. I have about 15 years experience in audit and risk, specifically with technology regulation, regulatory work. That's my cup of tea. And in the past several years, I've just gained an interest and curiosity in the technology enablement space. And I say this story just to help encourage that you don't need to be a true technologist where, you study code or all you do is Python day in and day out to really understand some of these concepts. And I hope in today's session, I hope to demystify some of these AI components to really help show you any risk or audit professional can be a part of this. You can sit at the table, speak intelligently, and use AI in a smart way that really can help you out. You don't need much specialized knowledge. You just really need that curiosity and interest to get you started. So today, what I'd like to share with all of you is a little bit about agentic AI or AI agents. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Um, we have some great material here for you. I highly encourage to ping your questions as we go. I can't see the questions, but we have Daria and Japneet who will be monitoring, and feel free to pop in throughout the conversation. I want it to be a conversation. I don't want to just talk to you for the next 45 minutes. I'd love to hear thoughts and considerations and questions as we go. So as said, this is me. That's just a QR code to my LinkedIn. I love keeping in touch. I love hearing what everyone else is doing. I love hearing folks' follow-up stories, where you may have stumbled or where you may have succeeded. So please do add me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect and keep the conversations going. So with today's session, again, want to demystify AI, make sure it's something that everyone feels is approachable and something that you're able to do. So from today's session, I hope that you'll be able to better understand and visualize AI agents and assistants, including how they differ from the traditional large language models in terms of structure, autonomy, and ability to take action. And I also would hope that you take away from this session the ability to identify the different applications of common AI tools at different stages of the audit lifecycle. So when it comes to AI and AI agents, what we've recently seen, because I do a lot of these types of presentations for professional organizations and specific clients, is there's a lot of conversation going on about AI. Everyone's interested. Everyone's talking about it. It's a new buzzword. Everyone wants to get to check the box that they said AI in their report, or they have AI on their innovation plan. But it's really only about 4% of folks that are even using agentic AI. And Gardner predicts that even within just 4 years, at least 15% of the work tasks in everyday work are going to be automated and done automatically using agentic AI, which that's up by a huge percentage, 15% since just last year. Last year, nobody was really using it. Very small adoption in using agentic AI. So why I say this is because AI agents are here. We're already using them and they're not going anywhere. If anything, we're predicting increases. So if you haven't heard or explored agentic AI yet, now is the time to harness that interest, harness that creativity, learn as much as you can about it, practice it, because it's not going anywhere, which leads us into this next point, that this is just a new tool and a new skill set that us auditors should know. I constantly hear this buzz that AI is going to take our jobs. AI is going to eliminate so many folks in the workplace. And that's not true at all. AI isn't going to take your job. Auditors who use AI will take your job. This is not a skill set that you can be passive on. You really need to actively learn and grow these skills, because it's going to continue to be the expectation that us auditors do more with less. And the only ways that we could really do that is leveraging all the great acceleration benefit of AI. So when it comes to agentic AI, we're already using AI agents in our personal life. Things like using your Alexa or Google Home to ask it to put something on your calendar, update your grocery list. That type of activity, believe it or not, is an agent. Other things like having our smart thermostat. So when it detects that it's too cold, it's going to heat up the house for us. It knows the programming of when we leave to lower the air conditioning as to not waste energy and adapt to those types of changes, especially when we go from work days to work from home days to weekends. That's a type of agentic AI that we already have ingrained in our day to day life. And then things like Netflix or Amazon, like when you're shopping and it gives you predictive products or predictive shows of what you may be interested in based on past watch history and all the things you gave thumbs up to or hearts to. It's learning all of that and it's proposing new information to you. So, those are some ways that we're already using it in our personal life. Now it's time to carry forward those same habits and those same skills into our work life. And again, it's not that AI is going to take over your job at all. It's just a skill set that we need to learn more about. So moving on here, as we mentioned, there's many different types of AI. Right now, it's a very small adoption. Less than 5% are we actually seeing organizations and audit shops even using AI plus automation. We have seen over the past year a larger adoption of privatized LLMs. So, for example, at Protivity, we have our own version of Chat GPT. It's an internal, more secure um, version of GPT. We call it Pro GPT. We're seeing more organizations develop things like that and actually start using them. Copilot, we've seen the largest adoption so far. It's so easily integrated with the Microsoft suite that so many offices already leverage. It's a real great, easy add on and very user friendly. We'll explore Copilot a little bit more and then a little bit more later in the presentation. And then AI and GRCs. So, pretty much every GRC tool that we're using is force feeding us some form of AI. A lot of it is with predictive text. So, as you see, you may start typing something and it suggests additional words in that lighter gray text. That's how we're seeing a lot of this AI kind of check the box activity with suggested wording. But there's also a lot of really great linkage. Like if you try typing in an issue that may already exist in the system, it's kind of proactively flagging that. Like, did you really mean to enter this issue a second time because something similarly already exists? So we are seeing better adoption, but there's even more power that can be harnessed. And hopefully, agentic AI is one of those things that you can bring back to your teams after today and kind of have discussions and exploratory ideas of how can we leverage this or how can we strengthen our skill sets. We'll go through some really cool examples as well as some really tactical and easy to use examples that you can get started with even before year end. So when it comes to the audit lifecycle, we can really exceptionalize and accelerate every single phase of the audit. Whether we're learning, so doing some brainstorming, such as what are new risks in the identity access management space that we should be considering. Maybe it's gathering information from past audits or past assessments. Maybe it's some of that, what are potential issues or potential concerns that we need to be focused on based on existing issues or recently opened issues in our issue management system. Having the ability to query that information at your fingertips is truly an accelerator. These are things that we may have given a junior associate the task of, hey, can you do some research for us? And then they kind of give us something half baked, and then we're a little frustrated. We're like, well, where did you find this info? And they're like, oh, I forgot to provide any sources of where I gathered this. So it's almost feels like you kind of have half-baked product after a week. However, using AI, these are things you can get within minutes and prepare and accelerate a lot of that brainstorming. And what's very imperative, and I will consistently say throughout today's presentation, is that none of this is supposed to remove the human out of the equation. So I can't remember the name of the individual who wrote during Daria's questioning at the beginning here. They said it gave obviously wrong answers to something I already knew. That is going to be extremely important because AI isn't always going to be right. Sometimes AI will give you a wrong answer. Sometimes it'll hallucinate and just make up an answer. So it's always important that you have some knowledgeable skill set, some knowledge on what you're asking. So, for example, if I was to ask, what are new risks or emerging risks that I should consider in identity access management? And it comes back and it says, a risk that you should look for is like leaky faucets or unlocked doors to your house. I'd pause and think, well, that's absolutely not right. So you need the right level of context. Maybe you don't need to be an expert in the area, but at least enough situational awareness to make sure that that brainstorming is on trend for what you were expecting. But it really does just help to accelerate that process, get a lot of that researching and note taking information done much sooner to get you to those more value adding tasks sooner. Even when it comes to building, you can have AI help you build risk assessment, standard audit programs, work templates, test procedures. You can ask it to analyze large sets of data. You can ask it to fill in templates for you. You can even ask it to help send out follow ups to certain folks, keep all of that organized for you. So, again, it takes away some of those tedious manual tasks that it would have taken you to build, large Excel templates. And allows you to really focus on the audit or the assessment itself, and let AI do the manual, boring, tedious tasks. And then in the writing and performing, we've used AI for things such as help me write a policy. This is the framework we want to balance against. This is the direction we want to go in. This is our mission. These are our goals. Help me write a policy. Here's our company framework. Here's some of our methodology of how we like to have um, our policies written. Even things like help me write some testing lead sheets, help me write some code, which of course there's a lot of risks and a lot of controls that need to go into place when using AI, which we'll also explore later. But I'm just trying to show you there's infinite use cases how we can use AI in audit and even performing some of our testing, right? So we can ask it to do comparisons for us. We can at so many different levels. We have things like Copilot that we can upload a policy and then upload screenshots and ask, do these screenshots align to policy, and get some of that analytical work done a lot quicker. Of course, we always recommend treat it as if a junior associate performed that level of work. So still you want that intelligent human to perform a review over the work. And if anybody recently saw in the news, one of the big four accounting firms, they just recently got smacked with a big fine because they basically used AI and just took that deliverable and pushed it right out the door. And the client was like, this isn't valuable at all. We paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for this. This is not right. And regulators made that company pay the client back for that. So it's just a really important lesson. You want to still do your thorough reviews and vetting of the material. You never want to just take AI output at face value and push it out the door as an end deliverable. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about AI agents and AI assistants to explain what they are and how they're being used. Before I hop into that, just wanted to check, were there any questions so far? Does everything make sense? Anything coming up in the chat, in our chat box?
No, not yet.
Okay.
All good.
So what I'd like to explain is, what is an AI agent? So I went through some examples before, and maybe that even still seems a little bit foggy. But an AI agent, think of it as like, I like to think of it as like a little digital helper that can observe, it can think, and it can act without you having to micromanage each step along the way. It's autonomous. It can make independent decisions and execute independently based upon predefined goals. There's minimal human oversight. So you basically give it a task, tell it how to do its task, where to reference if it needs to make decisions or understand what subpath to go down, and then give you that output. So an example is an AI system can autonomously analyze financial data to detect anomalies and generate reports on how that analysis went without any human oversight. And then the human can take that report and review it. So again, it's very similar as if you gave it to a junior associate and you told them, this is the task, this is how to do it, this is, something to reference of different workflows and different points of thought to consider in your process. Do this work and give me your output. And then the human reviews the output. That's what a true AI agent is. And where an AI assistant varies a bit, AI assistant is, if you look at this bottom graphic, I like it a lot. It's like the robot talking to a human. It's much more collaboration. So an AI assistant is meant to collaborate with a human. The AI performs, checks in with the human for feedback, specifically engaging the human at the decision making processes. So, um, the assistant will perform a task, and when it gets to a decision, it'll send a notification or reach out to the human and say, I'm at this crossroad, which way would you like me to take? And the human makes the decision, and then it continues processing, and then it says, hey, this one looks like it's an error, is this correct? And the human responds. So it's back and forth. It's also an accelerator, but an assistant is consistently seeking the human validation for the different routes to go down. So that's a slight variance of them. Some agents in the workplace that you may already be familiar with or may not even know that these are agents are items such as email filtering, things like your weather app, right? So when it detects that new information is available, it automatically updates a dashboard for your viewing, and AI scheduling. I don't know if anyone's ever taken advantage in Microsoft Outlook to set focus time. So it looks at your calendar and sees, most mornings between 9 and 10 a.m., you don't have reoccurring meetings. Let's set some focus time on your calendar for you to have dedicated work time. So that's a little agent that's baked into Microsoft Outlook that studies my calendar, sees when I'm consistently having free time, and it puts time on my calendar as a reserve for me to focus on my work. Those are some examples. I don't know if anyone has any other examples in their actual workplace that they've been using, but feel free to drop those in the chat here. We'd like to hear about some of those. But the purpose of both is to complement the human expertise. Again, not meant to replace. It's supposed to accelerate, get some of those tasks out of the way so us as a human can focus on more value add tasks. So, for example, if we asked the agent to analyze a large set of financial data and come back to us with all the discrepancies in the form of a report, we as a human auditor can spend more time investigating with control owners and process owners. Why are these types of failures happening? We can better understand that root cause and come up with better recommendations to better address that root cause, which leads to more impactful audits or more impactful assessments because we actually have that dedicated time. We're not spending all of our time creating Excel spreadsheets anymore. We're really having that ability to dig deeper, listen better, see better patterns, understand root causes, come up with better recommendations for more impactful reporting.
And
Um,
we
mhm,
have someone, Jessica replied saying Speechify Grammarly as a tool.
okay, good. I'm glad to hear someone has some, so that's good. One key message with the moving towards agentic AI use is we're shifting from a human in the loop to a human over the loop. So we're not removing the human fully. We still want that human coverage over what the AI agent is performing down here. So we're still going to review. We'll still make sure it's working. Still make sure we have the right risks being addressed by the right controls. But that's the direction we want to go in. We don't want to be ingrained in that circle anymore. We would rather be over that circle of operation. So how an agentic AI works, this is an example workflow. So there's going to be a trigger that happens, which is right here in this first bubble. A human input or an event triggers the agentic AI workflow. Here in the interpretation circle, the agent is interpreting the user's intent and is trying to assess the context of what needs to be done. The agent will then go into a workflow generation. So it's going to think based on the information that the human fed it, what design is needed or what sequence of tasks and events is going to be needed to meet the request. So we've already given it a library of potential tasks or potential paths to take. And the AI is thinking, what task is going to best fit this trigger? Then it's going to move into the execution workflow. This is where the agent actually carries out the planned actions to fulfill the request. Also built into the AI, the agentic AI, is this trial and error feedback loop. So we've pre-programmed it that if there's a certain type of output, or if the result, if if we do not arrive at the desired result, go back and take a second look. Make sure you followed the right path. Make sure you completed all the tasks needed and do it again. So it does have that built-in self-check. And then it's going to produce the output and results in that last bubble, and that's what the human review. So we'll get that output, we'll review it from a sanity perspective, make sure it makes sense, etc. But that's what's happening behind the scenes when we're having an agent perform a task on the behalf of the human. Here is an agent at work. So this is an agent that we've built to help us do a first pass at reviewing financial statements and tying it out to Excel work papers. So as you can see here, it's a very simple prompt. The way you speak with agents is very casual. It's not that you need to know specific technical language. Yes, some knowledge of prompt engineering, which even prompt engineering sounds fancier than it is. Prompt engineering is just asking AI a question to make sure you ask it in a manner to get back what you want. It's still very simple layman's terms. We're not using any technical conversation here. As you can see in this example, we asked, can you do a first pass review of the financial statement and tie out to the supporting Excel work papers, and we dragged and dropped our supporting Excel work papers. So what we'll see here is that the agent is going to get to work by reviewing our task. I'm just going to pause for a second. You'll see here in this bottom left corner that the agent has built out a task list. This is almost like a clipboard to show us, the human, these are the tasks that it has determined would be best to address the trigger or the ask. The trigger was our conversation up there. So over here, it developed the little task list, and as it's processing, it's going to give us updates each step along the way. So we as the human get to see that. It's going to continue processing each task along the way. And once it's done, which is literally just the matter of minutes here, it's going to generate an output. So we asked it to analyze the financials against and tie it out to these supporting documents, the supporting Excel. It's preparing that right now, and it'll give us this Excel right here. So you can see there's a little download button. We can review it in the screen, but this gives the human the ability to review the work that the agent did. So so quick and easy, right? Imagine if you asked a junior associate, they take maybe 2 business days to do this, and then they send it to you with questions, and you have to go back and forth explaining it to them. Here we just did it in the matter of a few minutes, which is just a really, really great accelerator. I hope you can understand the benefits and just the excitement of what you can do, how much more you can look at, right? You're not restricted now to just looking at a few samples to make sure that those tick and tie out. Rather, we just evaluated that entire file, all 74 items, within the matter of minutes. So in my eyes, I think that's really cool and exciting. But then we thought, why don't we even take it further? So when we do a walkthrough, right, I think any auditor or anyone performing an assessment can attest to the fact that doing walkthroughs take a lot of time. And then you're taking notes. And sometimes you're in that walkthrough by yourself. So you're trying to ask the questions, pay attention to what that control owner or that process owner is telling you. Type notes, which are sometimes sloppy. Sometimes, you get really engaged in the discussion and you're not typing anymore. And you're like, oh man, I'm missing some information. Then you have to go back, you have to read your notes, pretty them up, make them look more legible. go back and try to think, okay, what were the risks we talked about? What were the controls we talked about? Did we hit on any of the agenda points? Feed it back to the control owner or process owner in a presentable format to make sure you heard everything accurately, to make sure you captured everything completely. And sometimes that in itself, walkthroughs, when I have like one in the morning, one in the afternoon for like 3 days in a row, sometimes it's not till day 4, 5, or 6 that I even get around to looking at my notes from that first walkthrough. And then another day or so before I can even go back to that control owner and vet them. So what we thought about was, wouldn't it be cool if we could use AI to help us with this? This is a really pain point in our audit process. Let's use AI to help us. So what we thought is we'll take advantage of all these tools that allow transcription. So during a meeting, we definitely ask for approval first, if it's okay from all the attendees, if we record and transcribe the meeting for note-taking purposes. And a tool like Copilot, what actually happens as it's taking those notes, you can interact with those notes. So you can ask, hey, this was our agenda. Did we hit on all the agenda points? Are there any areas of concern so far? Any questions we may want to follow up with? What were the action items stated during this meeting? Where did we note controls during this meeting? So you can easily get that information as you're having this meeting, which is that in itself is a really cool feature. But we figure if we take that transcript, maybe we can have AI help us get it in a presentable format to get back to the control owner and get back to the process owner sooner. So we can vet that information and move on to our more important tasks and not have to wait a whole week later. So I'm going to show you this cool AI use. And this is what we call our process diagrammer. So you turn on transcription during your meeting once everybody reviewed and approved or gave their approval. You're going to conduct the walkthrough, and the transcription is going to happen as you're having your meeting. You're going to take that transcription and download it. And what we're going to end up doing with that is uploading it into, this is our instance of Chat GPT. It's our internal private LLM. You could also do it in Copilot. What we're going to say is, based on this transcript, we'd like to make a process flow. In the process flow, we want to talk about risks, we want to talk about controls, and hey, while you're at it, give us some example testing for how we can test each control. And again, real time here, within just minutes, this information is all prepared. Of course, we need to go back and review it and make sure it made sense. But what we're going to put it through next is our diagrammer tool. So this is an LLM that we've built. And we say, please make a process flow with swim lanes based on this transcript, based on this information. So we took our transcript and it listed risks and controls. We said, please make a process flow. That's what it's doing right now. It's logging, it's putting all the information in a text format. It's putting out all the processes here. And again, this is real time. Think about how long it takes to make a process flow and how tedious it is to use Visio and how maybe not everyone on your team has Visio. It's going to go ahead and take this information in the form of an Excel table. You can still edit it. So if you wanted to change the name of a control or go back and update a function or an individual's task, you can do that. And right here in Excel, we're using Data Visualizer to turn it into a process flow. And just like that, if you spent 15 minutes after your walkthrough, you have a preliminary process flow. And of course, it's not going to be completely refined. There's still room for edits. It's still editable. There's still room to make updates once you do vet it with your control owner. That's going through and adding the control number. But it's a much quicker way to get there sooner. So I hope you see and are excited about the benefit of how quickly this can accelerate your tasks. It's very wowing, in my opinion. What we also can do is take that walkthrough transcript and have it write a narrative using the same LLM technology that we've built for this. So whether you want a narrative or a process flow to get back into that vetting process sooner, those are options that are available. I'll pause there before I show our next one. Any questions, Daria, that may have come up?
There is no question.
Okay, I'm going to have a sip of water.
Please, this is great, Brandy. Thank you so much. And I appreciate, as you said, I think your workflow, which you just showcased, it's technically how you're demystifying the complexity, right? So at least the speed, we show it. And I'm glad you mentioned that it's still editable, right? So yeah,
Right?
great.
Absolutely. So then we got thinking, right? So at first we're like, let's take advantage of the transcription process. How can we make those process flows and those narratives help us out even faster? And then we thought, well, what if we even take it one step further? What if we didn't even need to have the meeting? So what if we could have these agents go straight into the system as an IT auditor, gather information such as users and groups, and compile that data into a report for us to use for our audit purposes. And along the way, take screenshots. So, as we know, we always need completeness and accuracy evidence. Some folks call it IPE. Anytime we get a system generated report. And sometimes you have to go back to the control owner or that report owner and ask, hey, you didn't send the IPE. And then you get the report in a different format. And then, there's a lot of back and forth. So what if we just have AI go in and do that for us? Go in, extract the users, extract the groups on behalf of the IT auditor. As you're doing that, take screenshots so we can have our completeness and accuracy. And all of this would be done in a virtual browser. So the AI, which I'm going to show you here in a moment in this video, the AI logs in and it navigates around in the system. It explores and it gets oriented with what it needs to do. And what's really neat is that this AI agent is going to kind of, as it hovers over different screens, it's quick little descriptions of what it's doing. It's trying to understand this, trying to understand this, trying to understand this. So you can kind of see what it's doing. And once it has a good idea, once it's oriented and it's aware of what it needs to scrape, what information it needs to pull out, it actually starts that extraction process. Again, all of this is done within a virtual browser that the AI agent is using. It's taking those screenshots as it goes. So you're seeing how it's done along each way. Sometimes we even end up getting more screenshots than what you need, which I find to be helpful because it's always easier to not include things than to keep having to go back and ask, oh, I need more, or I need, you didn't send me the whole sequence of events. So it's nice that it's a really nice complete set of screenshots that it's sending back. It's great for any type of tedious data extraction tool, configuration testing, or automated control testing. I'm going to show you how it works. And then I do have some points I want to discuss, especially about how we make sure there's the right level of control in using an agent this ingrained in our system. But this seems extremely promising for what we're envisioning the future use of agentic AI as. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. And in this video, you're going to see we're requesting the agent to pull some information. So I'm going to just quickly pause here. So this is our agent that we've built. And we give it a little persona. You are an IT auditor extracting artifacts for this audit. You would need to take a screenshot showing the data and export the data in a raw report, either through website functionality or agent scraping. I would like you to visit this website, log in with the already provided credentials, and pull the contents of the users and group. So again, you don't need to be a technologist. We're not coding. You're not sending out any specialized scripting. You're speaking in plain, everyday language, asking the agent to perform a task. I think we can all agree that was a pretty simple ask. So the agent's going to go ahead and get started in performing this task. So give it just a moment here. It's setting up its desktop, its virtual desktop or virtual browser. It confirmed back to us it understands the ask. And this is where it's showing what it's doing. So if you look real quick, those little gray bubbles. It says, I'm inside the dashboard and the user's collection is selected. I'll open the first, and it's going to say, I'm going to open the first one. So it explains to you as it's doing it. So you can make sure, does that make sense? Is that how I would have done it? So you still are that human over the loop. You aren't the one logging in. You aren't the one navigating. You aren't the one clicking and extracting. Rather, we have a front seat view as the human over the AI agent, seeing what it's doing and making sure it makes sense. You would never want to like turn around and have your coffee when this is happening. You want to make sure it's doing it as expected. And again, following those types of tasks that we've planned for it to follow. So I'm going to go ahead and keep playing it now. So it tells you what it's doing along the way. It's getting oriented, understanding what it needs to do, where it needs to pull it. And in a moment here, it's putting out an API call to query and pull out the information that we need. So give it just a moment. See, my eyes are still on it. I'm not watching my little robot. So give it just a moment. And while it may feel like, oh my goodness, I'm waiting forever for this, it's still a lot faster than what we could do if we had to go in and extract this. So now it's going into the groups and it's going to extract the groups. It just did it for the humans. It's getting it all set up for the groups. And as this is happening, I'll mention one of the key considerations is with this type of computer use agents, this is preparing the CSV extract for us. So it's doing all the behind the scenes preparation of the data, compiling it and summarizing it, putting it in a presentable format, which is here. And in just a moment. And also here, it shows us these are the screenshots. If you see where the cursor is, here's the screenshots that it's used. And you can even hover over that individual little link to see the screenshot. So coming down, what you have is a Word document of all your screenshots and the Excel table of all the information you requested to pull. So right here, these are the screenshots. What? I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't hear if you were mentioning something, but we'd love to hear it. So please either ping it in the chat or speak up because we couldn't hear it. So one of the items I wanted to mention is that we do give it read-only access. We have seen computer use agents go in and delete a whole SQL database. And we're like, no, we don't want any impactful mistakes like that happening. So we really do want to make sure that these computer use agents only have read-only access, just to read the information and pull it, not to update or modify, at least not yet. We're not at that comfort level yet. Also, access to the system. One thing that we prefer is that it has an API call to a credential vault instead of having stored credentials in the agent itself. So this way we can, even do like password rotation, like every single use, we can have the vault change the password every time it's used. Again, just so passwords and credentials aren't stored in plain text within the agent. Rather, have the agent do an API call to the credential vault, get fresh credentials to go in and log in and do these tasks. But in my opinion, it's like, wow, this is great. This is even better, especially for those folks in internal audit. If you were able to use this, gather your information and not even need to ask the control owner and have all these meetings, we can have our agents doing this information for us. It would be great. And additionally, for those of you who implement, your first, second, and third lines of defense, it's a great way for everyone to have consistent information. It's not a human, forgetting to put one type of filter on or extracting the information, but then they copy and paste it into a Word document and somebody else PDF'd it with different criteria and somebody else, who knows? You could get so many different versions. So if we had this agent that all 3 lines of defense could get, everyone's using the same information for their testing and assessment purposes. It allows for consistency. And again, it allows for more impactful assessment and audits because you're not spending the time going back and forth bickering over a report and all the screenshots of the report. You now have the information. You can sit down and execute your testing now. So this has just been a really cool way to use AI. Of course, this takes a little bit more development and building out. So your team would need some knowledge, or you'd maybe want to bring an AI partner in to help you build this. But what we really wanted to showcase is this is some of the awesome power of AI that you can harness. This is out there. This is available. And again, this wasn't overly technical stuff to build. Like we have a developing team and we think of these ideas and they're able to whip them up. So there's no reason why you can't as well. So I hope these couple of examples have encourage some excitement, encourage your brain start churning, start going back to your teams and thinking, oh, who has some of this AI development activity or, skill sets and knowledge, and how can we start doing some of these, and talking with your AI governance boards or your AI governance committees to see how some of this really cool stuff can be unlocked in your organization. I do want to go over some more tangible examples. So, some of the less complex examples that maybe you could take away and even start using as soon as next week with your teams. So, I will go through some of those, and we still have to talk about some risk controls and frameworks. But I'll pause again to see if there's been any questions or if anybody does have any questions so far.
Yeah, that's a question from James. How do I get my productivity consultants to go over with my team if they use this with us?
So you want to know if your consulting team is using this right now for you, or how to get them to use this for you?
I would assume, James, if you can reply, but I would assume that how do I get my productivity consultants to go over with this, to go over this with my team?
Yeah. I I mean, you can ask them, you can tell them, "Hey, I was at this ISACA event. This sounded awesome. I want to hear more about this." And more than likely, it would either be myself or one of my peers in our technology enablement space that we'd come in and have this conversation with you and your team, James. So what ends up happening a lot is through these different types of, I almost want to say road shows, like we're just sharing the excitement of AI. And I think a lot of people, regardless of what company you work for, we're just excited to share the power of AI and share tips and tricks. And it's to the general community. Like we all want to build and harness all this awesome power. So how can we do it together? So what I've seen is delivering conversations like this, what then happens is a client wants to have a conversation. We have like, all right, let's have a 60-minute conversation. Like, what are some right use cases? And then we end up coming in and doing a workshop to help stand some of this stuff up for you. That's not unique to just me or my team. We have a lot of, there's a lot of different places and sources you can go for AI. I'm just speaking on my experience here at Protiviti. But that's typically what we like to do. Someone's interested based on one of these type of conversations we hear, we can come in, do a 60-minute discussion with you and your team leaders to see what are you interested in, give you some high level information. Then we come back and we do like a 2.5, 3, 4 hour workshop to kind of help get some stuff off the ground, and really you can customize it from there. If it's something you and your team can take on, if it's something you want additional help with. But yeah, just send us a note. We'd love to have conversation about this and connect you to all the right folks.
And James replied, I do want to hear more. I love my productivity team.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. And just so it said, this isn't supposed to be a Protiviti commercial. I of course love Protiviti too, and so I am here. But I don't want anybody thinking I'm trying to attempt this as a sales call. Not absolutely not. I'm 100% here to share my excitement for AI and help stir up some excitement in all of you. So, James, I am glad that you're happy with your team, and I'm glad you're excited too. And yeah, even just shoot me a note. I'd love to keep chatting about this with you and your team and getting the right folks in front of you.
There's another question.
Okay.
Is there a way to give agents limited edit access? I've been
Yes.
using Copilot agents, but run into issues where I cannot edit a OneDrive file. Uh, Question
Oh,
from
okay.
Angelina.
Yes. Yep. Yep. So there are restrictions. So if you want to have it, if you want to have your agent be able to update and modify, um, absolutely you can configure it as such. Even I know like certain folders, only certain folders, documents within certain folders could be edited, whereas others is all read only. So it would be, just a little bit of discussion maybe with someone a tad more technical who understands that level. But again, happy to have a discussion with you, or if anyone here happens to know. And if not, I can also take a internal note for myself to get back to that individual once I see the chat again, on some tips and tricks of how to help with those different levels of restrictions to be able to have your agent updating OneNote or OneDrive. You said, sorry, OneDrive.
OneDrive. OneDrive. One more question from Angelina. She's saying, I also run into issues often where it runs out of memory. For example, I just wanted to compile a list of all my meetings for a given time period that match a search term, because Outlook famously cannot search properly, and it gave me an Excel file, but wouldn't go past 25 rows.
So I almost wonder, are you talking about like an internal GPT, or are you talking about Copilot? If it's an internal based LLM, you'd want to talk with your AI team, whoever is running and owning that. Because I know early on we've had issues like that too. Like you'd ask it to do something, it would spit out only 4 results at a time. So we had to go in and modify it. And especially if your internal AI tool is still new, or not necessarily very mature just yet, that's expected, right? It's not going to be a holy grail that saves us from everything. There's definitely refinement as you go that's going to be needed, and that's expected. So perhaps just connect with your internal team if it is an internal tool that you're using. Give them that feedback, and they'll need to make adjustments on the back end for that.
Yes, strangely enough, it's with M365 Copilot. So I would think
Really?
that wouldn't have that issue, but I keep running into it with different types of agents that I've been making for various projects. Um,
Oh, that
and
is really
it,
interesting.
yeah, it's very strange because, this one thing is like turning on the code interpreter because that helps, but
Mhm.
doesn't really solve all the problems. And there's only limited configuration things that you can do.
Right.
So, I would think that a product as widespread as that, like it wouldn't have those limitations. But,
Right.
you know, but yeah, I was just curious to see if anyone had any tips for getting around those things or like alternative agent creation tools that they prefer. So
No, I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm really interested to hear if other people are experiencing that. I personally haven't in my limited experience of, you know, the agents that I use. A lot of my clients, I tend to work on large banks. Um, we don't use them just yet. We don't use the agents just yet on some of those bigger clients. But in my experience, I haven't come across that. So I'd love to hear if other folks are experiencing that. And I believe your name was Angelina. I also took note of that. So I'll go back to my team because we all have different experiences based on the clients we work on, and come back to our collective mindset, pool of thought here. And I'll see if anyone has any tips and tricks and try to get back to you.
yeah, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for bringing that up. And of course, these things are common, right? Like we're still learning. Like the first time they built an airplane, I don't think it just worked. I think it went through like a lot of revision and a lot of refinement, and it's definitely expected. It's not going to be perfect right off the bat.
Okay.
Daria, were there any other questions or comments? If not, I can continue on.
Yeah, we can continue.
Oh, this one is information gathering. We'll come back to this one as time allows. There's so many different, so many different tips and tricks. This is actually here within Copilot. This is actually here within Copilot, just a cool way that we can use this functionality. So I'm just going to hit play if it's working. And I'll describe this as we go. So coming over here, this is just within our Teams, Microsoft Teams, Copilot. You come down here to this analyst function.
Brandy, I think
Yeah.
you're sharing the screen.
Let me see if maybe it stopped. One moment. Let me just see. Okay, I'm going to hit the reshare button. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me come back into view. Are you able to see now?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. This is coming over to Copilot, which is built into a Microsoft Teams here. What we're looking at is this analyst agent. Come right down here to get agents. And what we're doing, oh, I'm just gonna hide that. What we're doing is we're actually asking it to help us with some testing. So we want to determine if there's any terminated employees in this list. So as you know, with term testing, a lot of times we do end up having to test 100% of the population. But let's say we start with a sample of 30 or 40 or 45, whatever your audit methodology is. That's a large sample, right? And we have to go through and manually tick and tie against all these different access logs if this terminated employee still has an active user account. So what we're doing is we're just asking Copilot Analyst here to help us do that testing. So again, a really great accelerator. We're saying determine if there's any terminated people on this list by attaching that list. And you'll see again just how quick. And we upload the user list here. We're asking for a certain output, put it in a table. It's going to come up here in a second. So that was our term list. This is our user list. So pretty standard looking. This is all just fake information. And then we ask it to run. Again, this is real time. Again, we're not using any complex language. We're not you don't need to be overly technical. Again, our agent here is giving us a checklist of what it's doing. So we have the ability as the human to have that oversight, right? Again, we're over the agent. It's not coming back and asking us questions. It's telling us. So here it is. It spit out an example of here's a list of application users who correlate to the terminated employee group or employee list. So these are the ones who access the application after their term date. So there we go. Those are our 3 findings. And wasn't that a lot quicker for us than if you had to go through and manually do that each step along the way? And this is if you wanted to see how the information was prepared in each detail of the tasks that the agent came up with. It's expandable. So you are able to poke a little bit more into that. But it's still processing right now. Give it just a moment. It'll give us our updated. And here's your exported list. So you can easily copy and paste. That list will just be open in a moment here. And those are 3 exceptions. And again, you'd want to treat this like a junior associate was the one who executed the testing. But again, what a really great way to not only test 100% of the population, but to spend your time in a more valuable way. So now we can spend more time understanding, why did these 3 individuals not follow the normal termination process? Was there some manual incident? What was the true root cause? What do we need to put in place to stop that from happening in the future? And then it also helps us look at the whole population. We have better pattern indicators. So no longer are we looking at just a narrow picture that's supposed to be representative of the whole. We're looking at the whole and identifying a very strong pattern. So that's just another really cool way that we can be using agents. So of course, when it comes and that using this analyst functionality, as I mentioned above, 45% of organizations today already are using Copilot. This is built-in functionality. Nobody had to build this agent. It just exists. So if you have the ability to use Copilot, first, check what your internal policies are so you're not breaking any internal rules and guidelines. Make sure you check with your project teams that it's okay for you to use this. But this is a great way that you could literally start using this next week. Have the right discussions, make sure you're following your company's guidelines, and look at how quick that was to do a test. Very easy. And all you have to really do is work on writing up your lead sheet, which, by the way, I have an AI tool that writes up my lead sheets too. So it builds that all out for me, which is, you can really accelerate a lot of work. So I wanted to present that as a nice, easy takeaway that you can start using today, as well as those 3 examples, which are a little bit more complex, a little bit more involved, but still not overly technical. They're still not crazy. Nothing that we showed you was too big, too scary, right? Hopefully it all feels comfortable and approachable, and especially this functionality.
Brandy, we have 2 questions here.
Great, thank you.
Scott is asking, did you give Copilot access to all users in all apps or to a listing pulled from the apps?
It was a listing. So in this case, what we gave it was an Excel listing. So we already had the list downloaded. So likely our client gave us this list of terminated users and the application user list. And in this example, I only had one application list. That's why you see just 2 Excel files attached here. But you can attach multiple application lists, and you would just tell it, compare the terminated users from this report against these 3 application user list, and point it to those 3 application user lists. But these are downloaded. This tool didn't, in this example here, we didn't give it direct access to the technology or the databases.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And one more question. Question is from Kruti. Would the user listing need any kind of cleanup or formatting for AI to perform tasks on the list?
Very similar to how you would want to prep your data if you were doing it. So here we have first name, last name. So if they just had email on this user list, or the username was like L for Liam and then O'Neill, we would want to have some sort of consistent information between the 2, just as if you were doing the task manually. So yeah, you still may have to massage the information before you ask it, but you're still receiving the benefit of testing your full population within 2 minutes, right? So yes, you still have a little bit massaging. This isn't a cure-all. It's not going to automatically know how to reconcile for you. You could ask it to come up with fuzzy matches. So for example, if there's, like this Olivia Mueller has 2 little dots over the U, and maybe on the other list she doesn't, it could still find that as a fuzzy match. But yeah, you do still need to apply a little bit of massaging to it to make sure there's at least those consistent fields to do the comparison. And one thing I like to say too is you don't ride the first time you ride a bike isn't right before a marathon, right? That's not like the first time you ever ride a bike. You learn and you practice, and then when you're ready, you join the race. So the time to try like data analyst here, this analyst agent in Copilot, It's not when you have an audit due in 2 weeks and you're like, "Oh, let me explore how to use this for the very first time." Rather, I think it's great if you take maybe a past audit or a past assessment, one that you've already completed it manually, and try to reperform it. So if you already have Copilot, ask ask this analyst agent, this built-in analyst agent, ask it to perform this test for you that you already did manually to compare your results. Maybe it came up with something different and you'll want to explore why. Maybe it's how you asked it or how you presented the information, or maybe you didn't give it enough information, or maybe it came out exactly the same. But you want to become comfortable with it and play around with it and really get your feet on the ground before it's showtime, right? You don't just use it right before like a regulatory deadline to get an audit done or an assessment done. That's not the time to practice this. So when you have downtime, I know a lot of organizations have 12/31 deadlines, so the next few months are going to be pretty busy. But after the new year, a great time when you have some slow time, try to reperform some of the tests that you did using Copilot Analyst here. See what the results are, get comfortable with it, practice your prompting. And then when, your audits start up in February, March timeframe, you have a little bit more comfort under your belt and you're giving yourself enough time to try it. And then you get to use the benefit of, hey, I was innovative on this audit and I was able to test 100% of the population without incurring additional hours against this audit. And now I have better audit results. Or, because we did this, we were able to test 3 additional controls that, we wouldn't have otherwise. So it's really great to help highlight what is the benefit and what were you able to earn by using these AI agents. Okay. I do want to talk about key risks. So when we're talking about risks, we're thinking of all the same audit principles, just in a new frontier. Nothing is truly different. And a lot of folks feel like it's very scary, like, oh, AI is risky, right? But anytime we're using AI, it's very, very similar to what we already do with model management. So, model risk management, we've been using models for financial reporting purposes, for forecasting. We've been using those already for many, many years in a well controlled manner. So, a lot of the risks that we need to consider about using AI aren't really new risks. We're just applying it to a new form of technology. So, very similar the things you'd think about when you're auditing model risk or when you're evaluating a model. Those are the same risk points you're going to want to consider here for AI. The typical confidentiality, integrity, availability, compliance, ethics. I do want to go through a few points. And I'm also sorry, it's like nighttime now. So it's getting pretty dark in my room. So I apologize as it's getting darker here. But some key risks that I did want to highlight: data privacy and confidentiality. This is a really big one. So you need the auditor, if you're using any form of AI to help execute your audit, you need to be really cognizant of what information you're putting into AI. Where is that being stored? Is it being stored? So, for example, my internal GPT doesn't store the information. It uses it and it rinses it right out. We're not learning from it. We're not storing any stored information. But that's something really important that you want to know before you go upload a termination list that says the reason why folks were terminated. And then who else from the organization can ping against that GBT to find out, oh, look at Marianne was laid off, or she didn't take a new job somewhere else. She was actually laid off. You don't want that type of information to be made available. So those are some of the things you need to consider. Where is the data going? Is the data stored? And is it anonymized before it's being used? Or is it being masked before it's being used? So these are, especially if they're sensitive pieces of information: salary, compensation, terminations, HR info, personal information, security information, all those types of things you definitely need to consider. And then similarly with model risk, all the points that come along with model security and manipulation, it is the auditor's responsibility to understand what's happening in that model and what type of transformation is happening, and how we're making sure that data going in, being transformed, and coming out of the model is secured end to end. Same applies for AI. We need, as auditors, need to understand how is that information secured going in, any type of transformation that's happening, we need to be aware of, and how's it being secured coming out. Integrity and explainability is a really big risk as well. The auditor must be accountable to understand and explain the models or the AI that they are using for their audit purposes and how they gain comfort on those outputs. So, are the outputs consistent? Are they reproducible? So, a lot of times prior to your audit or at the beginning of your audit, you may want to have combined walkthroughs or combined discussions with your external auditor to say, hey, this is an AI tool that we're using. This is how we gain comfort, to allow them the ability to try to reproduce using your tool to make sure that they also have comfort. Same thing with regulators. You'd want to communicate if you're executing any of your audit execution or audit testing using AI to help ensure it is reproducible. The outputs are consistent. You definitely want to keep human in the loop, as I've been harping on this whole presentation. And are you explaining, are any explanations documented? So how you gain comfort, what are you using it for, how the output comes out, all of that stuff, have it documented, have it very easily presented. If you are able to explain it in a well-mannered way, folks are going to be much more comfortable with it. Rather, if you're just like, the data goes in and then I get this, people are going to be a little questionable of how could you use this for your audit purposes. Compliance and regulatory risk is, there's a growing web of regulations that are coming out there. I will highlight up here a few frameworks. Nothing surprising, right? We're still leveraging the good old trustworthy NIST. Different organizations like Microsoft is putting out some framework guidance. I do have highlighted coming up. There's OWASP. They have their top 15 considerations for agentic AI. All of this is free information, things that we've already been referencing before. What makes it sticky and why I say the word web is because there's so much and it's easy to get lost. I like to say, just take a breath, take a step back, start with one. Start with NIST CSF, start with OWASP, start small, see where there's overlap, and even ask AI to help you understand what is that web, where can we position ourselves. This is also a really great point to make sure your legal and compliance teams are involved in the discussions and understanding of what must we comply with from a regional perspective, from a global perspective, from a regulatory perspective. They absolutely should be at the table and in the loop when talking about these types of risks. And then there's our ethical and reputational risk. You want to make sure that your AI isn't having any built-in discrimination or biasness or exploiting any of those biasness. It needs to be accountable and making sure that the right guardrails are in place to keep it in the appropriate bounds. We have seen, it was at a mortgage processing firm that was leveraging AI to pre-vet mortgage applications. And there was individuals that had a certain zip code that the AI was automatically flagging as, oh, that's a low income zip code. Do not process. Don't continue the mortgage process for this individual, which of course is biasness, and AI would just exploit it. They're like, oh, we see a trend here that the people from this zip code tend to have lower incomes. Oh, automatically cutting them out of this process. And that's of course not the case at all, right? So we don't want to just cut people out because of zip codes. So we do need to have proper control over that. Frameworks and standards, like we said, there's NIST, there's this NIST AI framework. I'm sorry, I think I said NIST CSF when I was talking on the last screen, but there's the NIST AI risk framework, there's ISO, there's COBIT, there's regional, like the EU IA Act, plenty, like there's tons. And again, ask AI to help you. Ask AI to help make a map if you don't know where to start. Bring in your legal and compliance teams, bring audit, bring, IT into the discussions. It's not just one person's job, it's the whole enterprise that should be at the table, understanding the different frameworks, the different standards, mapping your controls to these standards. But none of it's really new. It's things that we already know, just in a new frontier, just in a new technology. So again, don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel bogged down by it. These are things we already know. I thought I had, oh, I guess not. I thought I had the OWASP. I'm just going to look real quick. I thought I had the OWASP top 15 in here, which I guess I don't, but I'm happy to share that link in here as well. Controls, I kind of have talked about these as we went. Of course, they're just the inverse of the risks. The one thing I didn't touch on, employee training and awareness. Sometimes folks get Copilot, ask it a question, and then they check a box. Yeah, I used AI on this audit. But is that really the best use? And you don't want somebody going rogue and using it in a way that wasn't intended. So making sure that you're investing in your team members, encouraging them to stay curious, learn as much as they can. This event, I believe, was a free event for everybody. So this is free information that you're learning right now. There's really no excuse besides just dedicating a little bit of your time. And if you did things like this each week, there's tons of free information available. Every company these days is publishing thought leadership on AI. There's tons of free webinars, tons of free information. There are certificate courses you can be taking. It's imperative to encourage training and development of our folks to learn these skill sets and get stronger at it. But all the other points we've pretty much have already talked on. Same things here. This was something that we have found to be very successful, is a gamification of AI adoption. So of course, everybody wants, folks in your organization to start using AI. And it kind of has been a flop. People are like, oh, it's interesting, but too scary, or interesting, but overwhelming, or interesting, but we're going to just say, no, nobody can use AI in the organization because that feels safe. But that's not always what's best. And what we've seen at a few organizations and things that we've been encouraging is make it a game, right? Make it like a competition. If you used AI, to do some research, you earn 1 point. If you actually used it in your execution, you earn 5 points. If you used it in your issue or report writing, you earn 10 points. And, maybe that team all gets 4:00 dismissal, or they all get coffee in the office or a lunch hour or something. But it's a fun way to increase adoption, get people interested, get the teams collaborating. You could even have like weekly every other week meetings to see the stakes of who's doing best and how they're doing it and trading tips and tricks. So it's just a good way to stay on top of it and again, harness the interest and excitement. So from today's discussion, few key takeaways. AI agents are already being used in our personal and work lives. Be aware of what those are. Be aware of what the potential uses are. Get curious, stay curious, make conversation, see how you can apply some of these into your own organization and your own team's discussion. The risks, yeah, maybe there's a few risks here and there that are new, but it's really just the same old stuff that we've been talking about. Same with the framework and the anchors that we keep balancing back against. It's just repositioning what we already know against AI, and it's just a new process that we have to go through. Our focus as auditors should really be making sure that those proper risks are being mitigated and that we have those proper controls in place, that our AI is explainable, repeatable, and it's being executed with the right level of ethics. And overall, my biggest message is don't fear AI. AI is the future. We have to get better at it. We have to continue developing these skill sets. And I hope each one of you does find unique ways to keep bringing fresh ideas and use cases to your team. So I have a ton more use cases, but what I would like to do is pause and see, maybe the next 10 minutes, what questions do you folks have? What did I not address? What are you still interested in, or what questions do you have?
Well, I'm looking at the chat. There are no questions for now.
Okay.
I hope we'll get a few.
A question that I often get when discussing this is, well, how do we get started, right? Who should be involved? How do we start the interest? And I think if you come with a good use case rather than saying, hey, we want to use AI, come with a good use case. Say, we do termination testing and every year it fails, right? We don't know why it keeps failing, but we know it keeps failing. We have these 3, 4 issues every single year, and clearly we're not making that right level of progress. What if we used Copilot to test 100% of our samples for us and even, help us do some year-over-year comparison of what we're finding from the issues to get better at identifying the root cause so we can have better discussions with our control owner or process owner or technology owners to stop this from happening, right? So come with that use case. Don't just say, hey, we should use AI. Or, hey, I heard an interesting presentation about AI. Talk about what could you benefit from using this AI. Bring that to the table. If you're in a decision-making position, bring together your fellow leaders across the organization, first, second, third line, bring in legal, bring in data, if you have a data governor, data, I don't know what executive, bring that person in. Let's have conversations about it. Let's see, how can we set up our game? How do we want to move forward? We can't say no AI forever. We have to find those new ways. So, yeah, just try to find some use cases.
I got one question. How does AI impact audit risk?
Yeah, so the better you are at explaining upfront and documenting how you gain comfort of using AI, is going to better mitigate those the risk of AI going rogue with their conclusions and their results. And maybe the first few times it's not going to be perfect. Like I said, maybe the first few times you go back and repeat some parts of your audit, or you compare the way AI is rating your issues against your preferred way and you tweak and tailor. And it's not going to just be a light switch where suddenly everything is good and fine. And as I've mentioned before, it's not the save all. It's not our holy grail that's going to save us from everything. It really is an evolution, and you have to work with the technology to get it to a point where it's trusted and people feel comfortable, and your external auditors feel comfortable, and your regulators feel comfortable. And perhaps by the time you have that nailed down, there's going to be new considerations, just like within cyber, right? It's an ongoing thing. No one ever says, yay, I achieved cyber. I won. I won at cyber, right? It's an evolution. It's constantly evolving. There's new things you have to address. You're consistently mitigating. And that's the same viewpoint that we should take with AI. And then I see somebody else comment, and maybe it's the same person. How can one show AI transparency when the models are themselves not? It's a black box and typically non-deterministic. AI, the same answer twice, or not the same answer twice. Right. So, I mean, if you're using AI for like research, you're right. Sometimes it can spit out different answers, different times. But if you're asking it, like in my last example of using Copilot Analyst to take this list of terminated employees and compare them against a user list, AI should come up with the same answer every single time. And if they're not, something is wrong. I would be really shocked if Copilot had different answers each time. And I would even suggest play around with that, see what's up with that. If you have somebody in your organization who's like your AI go-to person, ask them. If you have a vendor connection support with a Microsoft person, ask them, press back on them. AI tools, you also have to understand, right? Like there's a certain level of third-party risk, right? So that's technically a SaaS, or that's technically a third party that's providing an AI service. So you need to have a very robust third-party management program where you understand how that AI tool is being used and what they're doing. Doesn't excuse you of just saying, "Oh, it's a black box. I don't know." You still have to push back on that vendor and say, "All right, well, let's say audit board, for example, has an AI add-on. All right, you want us to buy this new module, or you want us to upgrade to have this as well? Like, how do I know it's consistent? How are you going to guarantee it's consistent?" So a lot of those third-party management considerations apply there too. You're welcome. Data ownership. Who owns AI generated data? If user owns data, how can we assure a copy is not stored by AI? That's a really great point. And who owns the tool, right? So, especially tools that are being used by all three lines of defense, who's responsible for the maintenance of that, the accuracy of that? How do we make sure AI isn't storing the tools? Those are all conversations that you need to have internally. There's not going to be a cookie cutter answer. So, who owns the tool and who owns that data output and who owns the data that maybe the AI is holding on to? It's going to vary. There's so many different flavors. It's a spectrum, right? So, if it's an internal built thing, you have more control over that. If it's a vendor system, lots of discussion needs to be happening through your normal processing of that third party. But that's a very gray area and requires a lot of discussion and a lot of comfort before you just start using it, right? So you're not going to just hop in and put your most sensitive financial information in it and hope for the best. These are types of questions you want to ask when you're building the tool or you're searching for a provider to help you with this type of work. So I think that was Larry. Very good question, but it's not a black and white answer, and it's something that you need to explore on a case by case basis.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Don't see any. Okay.
Well, I hope you learned at least one takeaway from today's conversation. And my goal is that each of the 50 people that were here today, you go and tell one person, and that person goes and tells another person. And we just keep spreading the excitement and interest in using AI. I definitely hope it doesn't feel as great of a barrier. I hope, within the next week, you start having discussions, and within the next upcoming months, you start actually using some of these things. And by next year, when we have our next September webinar, I'd love to hear some of the success stories. So please come back and feed to me your successes, your struggles. I love hearing all of it. And again, I really think it's not so much as who's the leader here or who's doing it best. I think it truly is a community. And if we all just share our knowledge and help demystify and help each other out, there's so much advantage and so much growth just as, again, a technology community that we can really achieve. So continue chit chatting with your peers, consider benchmarking, continue benchmarking yourself, keep the excitement going. And I look forward to hearing how your journeys go.
Thank you so much, Brandy. That was really incredible, insightful, and practical session. Really appreciate the way you broke down the complex topic. And thank you, everyone who joined, who asked questions, and who joined the discussion. And just a quick note before we say goodbye, the recording of this session will be sent out to all attendees. And once again, Brandy, thank you so much. Thank you for being such a engaging